Hello everyone, it's Aaliyah Orozco with the main event sponsored by FightBook, and I'm joined now with the one and only Dan Rafael. Dan, it's like old times.
It is like old
How
times.
are you feeling?
I'm great. It's good to see you. Good to be back in Vegas, as they say.
What do you think about the press conference?
It was pretty good. I mean, you know, Manny has never been the most verbose guy in the world, but he's spoke a lot. I mean, maybe he had a lot to say because he's been away from us for the last 4 years, but he seems excited. You know, he understands why he's the underdog. You know, so a lot of guys would get ticked off by that. You got to love Barrios. I mean, he's here to, as he said, bring a war, and I thought it showed a lot of kind of stones on his behalf when they asked him, like, what's your favorite Manny Pacquiao moment? I thought he might say something about a win. He says no, when he got knocked out by Marquez. So to do that right in front of him, that was sort of, I thought I was pretty impressed by that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, you've covered boxing for so long. Did you ever expect to see Pacquiao in the ring again? Like when you found out about this fight, were you kind of shocked?
I really wasn't, actually, because I knew that they were looking to come back. I know that his original retirement after the Ugas fight was more motivated by his political aspirations than his desire that he didn't want to fight anymore, that he felt like if I'm going to run for the president of my country in the Philippines, I can't also be proclaiming to be an active boxer. And so when he lost the election, they started to make inquiries about coming back. People seem to forget that, like, it wasn't that long ago, like a year or so ago, a little more, they were off in Saudi Arabia meeting with Turki Al-Sheikh to try to drum up a fight between Manny and Conor Benn. That was on the table, and there have been other fights that they've looked at. So when he came out of retirement and they made this match, it didn't surprise me at all. Mario is a PBC fighter. He has a welterweight title, which is Manny's weight class, and it was as relatively speaking, an easy fight to make. So I wasn't surprised at all he came out of retirement, and I'm not surprised he came out of retirement and it turned out to be Mario Barrios that was his opponent.
We saw Mike Tyson come in the ring, come back again recently, and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Do you think this fight is going to be similar to that, or this is going to be different?
I think different for a couple reasons. One, Chavez is a dead man and has been for years, and even at his absolute best was never that good to begin with. So that was a great name, but he hadn't been anything for literally 12 years or something like that since his last win that mattered against Andy Lee, and he was fighting 40 pounds over his best weight, and he's had all kinds of problems outside the ring. So I wouldn't even put Chavez in the same sentence. Tyson, I don't view it as the same either, because Mike was retired. I mean, Manny's been out of the ring 4 years. Mike was retired 19 years, and he's not 46. He's 58. He was closer to like Social Security than he was to like when he was a fighter. He was 20 years old when he won the heavyweight championship, and now he'd coming back after he'd been retired almost 20 years. So that was a fight where, you know, it was a great name, but you had to know you weren't seeing the Mike Tyson of the 1980s or even at the end of his career in the early 2000s. So with Manny, I know it's a long layoff, but when he lost the fight to Ugas, he didn't look that bad. I mean, it was a close fight. I mean, yeah, okay, he lost, fair enough, but it wasn't like he got outclassed. He didn't get knocked out. It was just a loss to a guy that was a good boxer that night and whatever. But it wasn't that long before that where he had gotten a huge win against Keith Thurman and scored a knockdown and all that sort of stuff. So there was still something there for Pacquiao. My question is it still there 4 years later? And I'm haunted by having watched, I forget exactly when, maybe a year ago or so, maybe even a little less. He took an exhibition bout against a kickboxer, not a boxer. And even though he and his team say, well, I didn't really train for that at all, I might have been in the gym a couple of days, I still can't forget what I saw, which is an aging Manny Pacquiao with no timing, getting smacked in the face with every punch the guy could land, who wasn't even an actual boxer. Mario Barrios, whatever you think about him, he's an actual boxer. He's a world champion. He's been in the ring with a lot of good fighters. He's got some good wins. And even when he's lost, he's never disgraced himself. And so as a guy in his prime at age 30, so I keep thinking about that exhibition, how bad Manny looked, and I wonder if we're going to see some of that on Saturday.
So with that being said, in your opinion, do you see this being kind of a one-off for Pacquiao or a part two in his career?
Well, when I spoke to Manny about a week or so ago, I asked him, is this a one-shot deal just to come back and see if he can regain the title and then off into the sunset? And he was like, which is the answer I kind of expected. He'll assess it after the fight. If he wins, I can't imagine he's just going to walk away because he loves boxing too much, and there'll be another big payday out there for him. If he loses, I think it might depend on how he loses. If he got destroyed and knocked out or, brutalized or something like that, maybe that would be the end. But let's say he lost, a controversial decision or, by 1 point or some, thing like that, maybe he would try to fight again. What I just can't help but think about is there was a time when Manny was the guy that retired guys. I was there when Manny Pacquiao, right here in this very building, when he annihilated Oscar De La Hoya, destroyed Oscar De La Hoya, and sent the old great champion into retirement. Now, I'm not saying Mario Barrios is that guy. But that's a scenario that you could see unfold where a guy's coming back at an age where he shouldn't be fighting anymore, and the young guy just takes it to him, and it's a sad night for all those Pacquiao fans out there.
Yeah, and really break down this fight for me. How do you see it going on July 19th?
I don't know. That's the thing. I mean, I'll put it to you like this. In my head, I know that guys out of the ring off a loss at age 46 who looked absolutely horrible in an exhibition not that long ago probably shouldn't be in the ring. But Manny Pacquiao is a legend, and he's done so many things, and he's done so many things that were unexpected of him that you can't help but think, well, maybe he can do it again. And again, I'm not knocking Mario Barrios, who's a great guy and a hell of a fighter and an exciting fighter and all that, but it's not like he's coming back to fight like a guy in the pound-for-pound list. If you look at the welterweight division, I mean, yes, Mario has got the WBC title and he's a worthy champion, but if you look at the landscape of who the other guys are that have titles, he's clearly the easiest of the guys. I wouldn't not have the same things to say if he was coming back to fight like a Brian Norman. When the fight was made, Jaron Ennis still had the belts before he decided to move up and weight. So Mario was there to be picked, and it turned out an easy fight to make because of the affiliation that they both have with PBC. So from that standpoint, I'm not saying he's a soft touch or anything like that, but I guess I have a hard time seeing the old guy pulling it off. I just, father times waits for nobody. I made the point to a couple people. You have a beautiful car, let's say, and you got it all painted beautiful, and you got the windows nicely tinted, and you spiffed up your wheels and put on a nice coat of wax, and you go out to take it for a drive. There's nothing under the hood. That's what some people might think about Manny Pacquiao. He's a spruced up car, but there might be nothing under the hood, and we're going to find out on Saturday. That's why we're going to tune in, and that's why I flew out here to see it.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a very interesting, good fight. Okay, let's talk about the rest of the card. This is just a stacked card in general. Just what fight out of all of those are you most excited about for one? Because all three of those are going to be great ones.
Yeah, no, they're all good matchups, absolutely. But I guess if I had to pick one, I would say the Fundora and Tszyu rematch.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, because it's stakes because of the title. It's first fight was so interesting. I mean, it was blood-soaked. I thought that Fundora was being absolutely, crushed by Tim Tszyu for the first couple rounds before what happened with the terrible cut, and that obviously changed the trajectory of that entire fight. So I'm fascinated to see what Tim looks like, because he hasn't, obviously after that fight, he had the big knockout loss to Bakram in a title fight. He looked okay when he came back, and I'll show you against Joey Spencer, so we'll see where he's at. So I guess if I had to pick that one, but how could you be upset with seeing Fierro against Pitbull a second time? I was here in February for their first fight on the Benavidez and Morrell card. I mean, that was spectacular. That's a fight of the year candidate for sure. And if they put on that kind of fight for a second time, it's going to be another great night.
I know that Tim Tszyu took that last fight with Fundora on very short notice. Do you think that's going to have a different outcome now that he's had more time to train?
Well, it's not so much about knowing about the more time to train. He does have a full camp preparing for the right guy, as opposed to making the switch in the last few days. I think it was 10 days notice when Keith Thurman pulled out with the injury the first time they fought. But he's had now the 12 rounds with Fundora, and even though maybe it didn't go the way he wanted in terms of the cut and the decision, he's gone the 12 rounds with the guy. He knows he had success against him early in the fight, and it won't be as big of a shock when he gets in there and he has to look up and see a guy that's so much taller than he is. So that can be just shocking, because it's hard to find guys to spar with, and they're putting guys on ladders to imitate the size difference. So he already knows what it's going to be like, having done those rounds not that long ago. So from that standpoint, it can only help his game, but I wonder what he's got after that terrible knockout that he took against Bakram.
Who do you favor in this fight overall? Like, who do you see winning?
In Fundora and Tszyu? I mean, if it's the Tszyu that shows up that was like in the first fight, I think Tszyu probably wins, because he was kicking his ass the first time, and Fundora had no answers, and then it was only after the cut occurred that Fundora was able to sort of put it on him, more because of the crazy amount of blood loss and those things that were detrimental to Tim's performance. But again, you have to also take into account what's happened to him since then, which was that brutal one-sided ass-kicking against Bakram. That can take something out of guys.
And you kind of brought it up, the Isaac Cruz versus Fierro fight. How do you see that one going? Do you see Isaac Cruz becoming victorious over him again?
Well, the first fight he won. It was close. The cards were slightly wide. I mean, Pitbull's the kind of guy that could lose to anybody like that, and Fierro is the same guy, because they just come to fight one way. So I don't have any expectations of who's going to win the fight. I just figure it's going to be another barn burner, because I've watched a million of their fights over the years, and it's hard to pick ones that are not good to watch. And they're a little chippy with each other. Fierro's like, he says that Pitbull has no chin because he thinks he rocked him in one of the rounds, and Pitbull says, well, no, it was really a shot behind my head, but he's like, I'm going to come and do that to you again. So there's that machismo there, and some guys just talk that shit and they don't show it in the ring. I think these guys will show it in the ring.
And so far out of this entire year, what would be your fight of the year candidate?
Well, for me, Fierro and Pitbull, the first one, is certainly a top candidate. There was a fight in Japan with Taraji in a unification fight that was spectacular. That would be high up on the list also. But for me right now, I have to go with Conor Benn against Chris Eubank. That was tremendous action, unbelievable storyline, unbelievable crowd, and a lot of drama. Everything associated with the magnitude of the event, with Eubank reuniting with his father as they're coming into the ring, and then the action of the fight, it was spectacular. The final round, probably a round of the year candidate. So if you made me pick here in mid-July which fight I would pick as fight of the year, I would go with that one right now. And I would put the Taraji fight in Fierro and Pitbull, the first one, high up on that list also.
Yeah, for sure. And we haven't really heard much from Ryan Garcia after the Rolly fight. Where do you think he goes from here?
Well, he's healing up from his hand surgery, and they're going to bring him back, I'm assuming, to see if he can figure out what the heck was wrong with him in the fight against Rolly, where he was asleep for the entire fight. They can match him up with anybody. I haven't heard any names necessarily, but you know how Ryan is. He goes on his social media. One day he calls out this guy, one day he calls out that guy. So the one thing I'm pretty confident is we'll see him back in the ring before the end of the year.
Do you think if he fought Rolly again with, just his normal mindset going into it, it would be a different result?
Well, if the Ryan that shows up on the night is a guy that's there to actually fight and not just walk around and do nothing, he's very beatable, Rolly Romero. We've seen it happen before. But there are those who would say that was a Ryan Garcia that was not on PEDs, and maybe that was part of the reason he looked so bad, because PEDs do have an impact. People don't want to understand that it does make a difference. I'm not saying that it did. I'm just saying it's understandable if you got caught with PEDs in one fight and then in your next fight you look so terrible. It's not ridiculous to draw the conclusion that perhaps that stuff was helping you. And Rolly, he didn't exactly fight a brilliant fight either. He did score the knockdown. It was honestly, I've got no interest in the rematch because it was so freaking boring. So I'd like to see them do other things. Yeah. But if they do a rematch, so be it.
Yeah, no. And my last question, of course, I got to ask you about the highly anticipated Canelo versus Crawford. It's approaching very, very soon. What do you think, Dan?
It's a big event. It's probably the biggest event of the year in boxing. They're both great fighters. They're both Hall of Famers in waiting. They're both going to make a big event. They're going to put on this, they're going to do it at the football stadium here in Vegas that never has hosted a boxing match since they've opened. And it'll get a tremendous amount of mainstream publicity. And if you're a boxing fan or even just a sports fan, you got to love that it's not a $100 or $90 pay-per-view. They're just, you have a subscription to Netflix like, whatever 100 million people in the United States have, or 300 million people around the world, and you just put it on the way you'd watch your show or your movie or your documentary, and you don't have to pay extra. So to me, that's the biggest part of it. As a boxing fan, I'm thrilled because it's a very fascinating matchup with two all-time greats, with the obviously caveat that you got Terrence Crawford moving up two weight classes to see what he can do against the undisputed champ. Neither guy looked good in their last fight, but I suspect they're going to be a lot more into this fight because the last fights I don't think necessarily motivated them. Canelo was fighting Skull to get back a belt that he already had. It was 6 o'clock in the morning in Saudi Arabia. It wasn't a very big crowd. I don't think he was all that motivated, and he didn't look particularly good. And in Crawford's case, close fight against Madrimov, but again, Crawford I don't think really ever heard of the guy. And I'm not saying he took him lightly, but I just feel like when you're fighting William Skull and you're fighting Madrimov, you can't help but not be as up. Well, you know who you got in front of you in September. And Crawford's saying, I'm fighting the great Canelo Alvarez. And Canelo's like, I'm fighting the 4-division champ, pound-for-pound type guy in Crawford that's never lost. I better be really prepared. So I'm hopeful that aspect that they're really tuned in will help make it a bigger and better fight.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of exciting things, you guys, going on in boxing. Thank you so much, Dan, for taking the time. And any last words for all the fight fans watching?
I'd say just enjoy the fights. We got a lot of them this weekend with Bam Rodriguez and Usyk and Dubois rematch and this great Manny Pacquiao card. Yeah. So I hope everybody gets a chance to check it all out.
Stacked weekend. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more content and check out FightBook, the centralized platform connecting everybody in the combat sports space.